Edward's branch line starts from Wellsworth. It runs through valleys connecting with the main line and goes along to Brendan where Bill and Ben work. Edward runs a line with the help of Boko, and when the work gets too much for them, the Fat Controller sends Donald and Douglas to help. Recently, the workload had increased along the line, given the increase of people arriving at the harbour. More factories and businesses opened as well as the increased demand for China clay, much to the dismay of Bill and Ben, who were kept up to the early hours of the morning arranging trucks to be taken away as usual. The Fat Controller sent Donald and Douglas to help.
"Dinna fash yourself," said Douglas cheerfully. "Donald and I will tackle this work before you get it."
It wasn't long before Donald and Douglas were at work. Donald went to the China clay pits to collect the trucks. When he arrived, the two tank engines stayed quiet. They knew better than to play tricks on Donald or Douglas.
"That's what I like to see,"
grinned Donald as he was coupled to the long line of trucks. But just before he was due to depart, the sound of a spluttering motor could be heard. A red lorry arrived at the China clay pit. He looked tired and rather cross.
"It's disgraceful,"
spluttered the lorry.
"My driver works my wheels to axles, forcing me to make deliveries all over this blooming island. And what do I see all around me? Out-of-date steam kettles."
Donald and the twins glared at the lorry.
"Steam kettles, are we?"
shouted Donald.
"Old-fashioned, are we?"
put in Bill and Ben. The lorry scowled at the three engines.
"Yes, old-fashioned. Your jobs could be easier done by buses and lorries."
"We're steam engines are far more reliable than your lot," snapped Donald. "We don't break down. Just inconvenience to others."
"Stop being a nuisance. I'll be off with you."
And with a loud splutter of his engine, the lorry rattled away.
"That told him,"
chuckled Bill, and Donald crossly puffed away with his... He was in a rotten mood for the rest of the day, and the truck soon discovered not to get on the wrong side of him. So they remained silent and cooperative. That evening, he told the others about what the lorry had said.
"We call him our Rattler," said Edward. "He belongs to the railway, but he is leased to the factories that bring in the extra revenue for the upkeep of the branch line. Boko and I aren't strangers to his attitude. Over time, we just learned to turn the other wheel and ignore him."
Donald knew Edward was right, but still he was determined to pay the lorry out.
"Who do I like to see the muckle lorry get his?"
he muttered darkly, and went to sleep. Beyond Edward Station, there is a three-line level crossing. Mostly cars and lorries use this crossing to get to either the vicarage orchard or the scrapyard, where Edward rescued Trevor. Today, Edward was due to collect scrap iron to take to the steelworks, but due to track maintenance the line had been closed, so old Rattler was sent in his place. When he arrived, he grumbled to himself as scrap was loaded into the back bin.
Why couldn't one of those kettles on wheels do this? I have enough work as it is.
It was soon time to go. His driver put him into gear, and with a cough and a splutter, he roared away. A heavy rainstorm had swept the island the night before, so the rails and roads were slippery. Donald was due to take a mixed goods train to the harbour. As he puffed out of the yard, he wasn't aware what would lay ahead. He was still thinking about what he would say to old Rattler when they next met. Many of the level crossings along the Fat Controller's railway had special bells for car and lorry drivers to notify the signalman that they are there, but old Rattler's driver was new to the island and didn't know the procedures. Unfortunately, as old Rattler near the level crossing, he began to slow down, and his engine was making tired, groaning noises. And then as he reached the middle of the crossing, with a loud cough of his engine, the lorry came to a dead stop.
Come on, I can't stay here, he protested as the driver desperately tried to restart his engine.
Suddenly, old Rattler and his driver heard a whistle in the distance. Old Rattler's eyes widened with fright as his driver climbed out of his cab and ran for safety. Donald and his crew could see the stranded lorry up ahead. The driver closed the regulator and desperately applied the brakes, but the train was too heavy and the rails were slippery. Then it all happened at once. With a loud clunk, Donald hit the lorry, sending it into a nearby ditch. Donald soon came to a gentle stop. The crew, the guard, and the lorry driver went to inspect the damage. Old Rattler wasn't seriously damaged, but was badly dented.
You clumsy great engine, look what you've done to me,
moaned the lorry. That evening the Fat Controller came to the shed. Donald was worried that the Fat Controller would be cross, but to his surprise he was smiling.
Today's incident wasn't your fault, Donald. The lorry's driver neglected to ring the bell at the crossing, and the rails were damp from the storm last night. It has also come to my attention that Donald and Douglas are needed on the Little Western, and can't be in two places at once, so a permanent solution must be put into place to that effect. The railway has successfully purchased a Great Northern Atlantic named Alice, who will be a full-time resident here on the Wellsworth branch line.
And with that, the engines had to be contacted.